want to welcome you back to Thrive in the Word. We're so glad that you've joined us for this teaching out of the book of James. You know, James is a wonderful, wonderful book, and it gives us such a great understanding. You know, one of the themes of the book of James is it's the book of theology. I mean, if you read the book of James, you will understand God in a deeper way, and that's what we're trying to get you to do as we do these videos. We want you to know God, not just to know about Him, but to really have a relationship with Him. Because you know what? Your relationship with God, again, I've said this several times already, but it's the most valuable thing that you have. Now, verse number 15, it says this, but when lust has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and when sin is accomplished, it brings forth death. Now, what's James talking about? He's talking about the progress or the progression of sin, how it starts with temptation, how temptation starts. And again, if you haven't listened to the prior two videos, I want to ask you to go back and listen to them because I don't want to take the time to do a great review. But first of all, the first step is this: you're led away. You're led away from your relationship with God. Then the next step is you become enticed by your own lust. In other words, your lust begin to take center in your life. Your desires. I want, I want, I want. You know, I've said, you know, we're living in a society that's dealing with pronouns. And you know what? I think the worst pronoun is I. I. In fact, I've said this: the greatest religion in the world is Iism, the worship of me, the worship of I. And you know what? What happens is we're led away from Jesus, and all of a sudden these things from inside. It could be the lust of the flesh, it could be the lust of the eyes, it could be the boastful pride of life, but all of those things begin to rise up on the inside, and they begin to take the place that God desires in our lives. You see, there is no such thing as a spiritual vacuum. Either it's God or it's you. Either one. But if you give in and you allow those desires to rise up and you allow them to entice you and say, come on, come here. You know, here's the next step. Verse 15. And when lust is conceived. Now, what does he say? He says, when lust is conceived. In other words, when lust comes to a point where it's full, where it's all that it's wanting to do is take over your life. When you've received lust as the controller of your life. Now, by the way, this could be just control for 10 minutes or 15 or 20 minutes or 30 minutes. But when you allow that to get control, when you allow it to be conceived in your life, then you know what? Then you've got a problem. Because the next thing that happens, James says that when lust has conceived, in other words, when it's been birthed, when it's coming to fullness in your life, then James says this: it gives birth to sin. What happens? Lust comes, and you're enticed with lust. You've moved away from your relationship with God. Now you're enticed by your own desires. It may be the desire for fame. It may be the desire for fortune. It may be physical desires for food or sex or anything like that. But here comes the enticement. And then all of a sudden, lust is conceived. In other words, something has taken control of your life. You know, when a woman conceives, something comes into her, the sperm of a man comes in, and it invades that egg, and she has conceived. Do you understand? Now, what happens then? The next step in this progression is that when lust is conceived, it gives birth to sin. Now, I'm going to say something that's probably not very popular, but I'm going to say it anyway because I believe it. I believe we talk too little about sin in many of our churches. We don't call things sin. Now, what is sin? Sin is what separates us from the life of God. It's what separates us. And again, going back to the very beginning, why does the devil come and tempt us? He comes and tempts us so that we are separated from the life of God. Now, thank God for Jesus. Thank God that his blood covers not only the past sins of our life, not only the present sin of our life, but his blood covers the future sins of our life, that we are in relationship with God because of Jesus. But we need to understand that sin takes its toll on us. You see, when we give in and we allow lust to rise up from the inside of us, and that lust then it's conceived, it's birthed, or not birthed, but it's conceived. Something has happened, something has changed on the inside of us. Then the next step is it gives birth to sin. In other words, if we didn't stop it, it's going to continue. You know what? If you don't stop a pregnancy, you know what's going to happen? You're going to give birth to that child. You understand? And that's exactly what James is talking about. You're going to give birth to sin. It's going to happen. Now, what happens when you give birth to sin? And this is the tragedy. This is what James says. And when sin is accomplished, in other words, sin is there, it brings forth death. Death. What is death? It's separation from God. Now, I'm not going to tell you that if you sin, you're going to hell. You know what? I don't believe that's true. But you know what? I do believe that when you sin, you are separated from all the goodness that God wants to give you in your life. That sin brings forth death. We need to understand that biblically, death means separation. So when sin is accomplished, in other words, it's done, we have sinned, then what happens? Death comes. Separation comes. Separation from all the life of God. Now again, I want to leave you with good news. Jesus died. He made the payment for your sin. Your sin will never cause you to go to hell, but your sin may cause you or keep you from experiencing the life of God. Take this to heart today. God bless you until we speak to you again tomorrow.